Yes, very good afternoon, Sonia, and really thankful to you that you finally agreed to give me time to have this conversation with you. And I'm extremely delighted because we are having this conversation on World Women's Day. That's another aspect of it. We are going to talk about being woman, and that too being woman in the architecture profession. So this is a research which I'm conducting on understanding life of women in architecture. And in this, the outcome expected is kind of a biographical manuscript from my wish is 100 women, and let me tell you, but I will go on as long as I can. So this is in digital mode. I did carry out pilot studies in the physical mode, but eventually it was going to be digital mode because I cannot travel pan India. So that way, Corona itself has let this option happen. So I'm going to throw you few simple questions of your journey into and through architecture and where you are today in this very, very prestigious position and also taking leadership in architecture, and how was it and how it is still. Okay, so may I ask your permission to also record this conversation because it is going to be in the public domain. So
Yeah,
once
sure.
again, thank you. Okay. So are you ready for those fun questions? Then I can start throwing it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, hi Mansee, and it's so wonderful that you have thought of me as one of your subjects. But I'm glad to be here, glad to be speaking with you on this platform. And I hope that I live up to your expectations. So yes, good to go. You can begin.
Okay, thank you so much. So we shall start with knowing how was it in your childhood and what kind of upbringing really brought you to the idea that you would like to join architecture. So I'm talking about your, just in the pre-college time when people are looking for, when youngsters are really looking for options. What was it in your life when you chose or somebody suggested? What was it in your childhood time? What
So do
brought
you
you
want
to
me to be
architecture?
absolutely honest? Do you want me to be absolutely honest?
Absolutely, brutally honest, I will say. And that's what we are, women. So badass, I say badass broads.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's quite interesting that you say that, because I will tell you, when we were growing up, nobody had any idea about what architecture means or what an architect is supposed to do.
Yes.
Then my brother, who was a lot older than me, he took up civil engineering.
Okay.
And and now we all know, or we've been knowing since we graduated, how this civil engineering and architecture tussle goes on.
Yes.
So when he came back with a degree in civil engineering, he told me, you could do architecture, but then it's no point doing architecture. So I said, why not? He's saying, because you just have to draw good looking houses and that's it.
You don't have to
So
build.
yeah, you don't have just to draw good looking houses. See, he's a civil engineer. He still didn't have a very fine idea. And see, so I was always a rebel. So the moment we were discussing my career option, then he says, there's no point doing it. I thought, I'm going to do just that. And and there was this guy in our locality who used to play cricket, gully cricket. He was at that time doing architecture, and everybody used to almost revere him. Wow. If he came out, everybody, take my bat here, take this innings. So I was thinking, why does he command so much of respect? And that I was, of course, very little at that, not little, I was in school, and I was thinking, so that there's something about this and some aura about him that is doing it. I thought, I will do it. And just one little anecdote here, because my mother was very much against it. Okay. She thought it's a man's job. Yeah. She thought it's definitely not a woman's job, and therefore I shouldn't do it. So I parallelly, when I got into, and she said, you are only going to study if you get into the nearest university that offers. I will not let you go outside Kolkata. So thankfully in Jadavpur University, parallelly, I got into English honors and I got into architecture. Wow. And I went to architecture class. I didn't go to English class. So how did I know? After a year of not attending English class, a letter went to my mother saying that your daughter has not been attending classes, so we will strike her name off. And then, of course, hell broke loose.
Yes,
So
I
that's
can
the
imagine
first
what
time
must have happened.
what happened, because she realized for the first time that this one year she was so scared. She said, then where do you go if you don't go to class? Then I told her that this is it. This is where I go. And I think that kind of, she thought I was going somewhere else completely. So when I
Yeah.
said, no, I do go to class, and here, this is I used to do all my work in college, because otherwise there were sheets. She'd say, what are these happening here? Then when I showed her, that she was, relieved that, okay, she's
Okay,
not
you're
going
doing
away.
something.
Something. And that finally got accepted. Yeah.
Yeah.
But accepted meaning what? Every time I was, and at that time we were doing manual sheets. So when we were tired and I would say, oh, my back is paining, she said, who told you to study this? Who told you to go do this? You've been doing English, happily sitting and writing. That was it. So
Yeah, because we also have fascination for literature, no, in Kolkata and that
yes,
part of the
very much,
country.
very much, very much. Yeah, absolutely. So women, her idea was women should do this. English literature, Bengali literature, doesn't matter. Then you take a professor's job and you sit at home
Sing
nicely.
well, sing well, and speak well. That's interesting to know. So you were actually already encountered with this factor of being woman or a girl in that time. That it's
Yes,
a girl's, it is not a
absolutely.
girl's profession and it is
Yes,
a boy's
yes,
profession and so on and
yeah,
so forth. And it
yeah,
was
yeah.
also within the family you could see it, experience it somewhere. But somehow in school and college we really don't see that difference, both from our classmates and from teachers as well, because now you are yourself a teacher. So how was it in the college? Was there any gender issue in the college? Because I personally did not really see any gender issue in during the B arc. So what was
Um,
it?
in our batch, I would say the only gendered issue we faced was at that time. None of they were all male professors. There were no lady
Okay.
professors at that time.
We didn't
Complete,
have that
yeah,
situation.
everyone. So obviously there was this, I would say, kind of an undercurrent of, oh, give some more marks to the women. And then the boys would come and say, why did you give her more marks? And this would be there. It was more
Yeah.
playful than real. But yes, there definitely was this issue that when it's all men teaching,
Yes,
a group of
absolutely.
women, there perhaps within some professors, and with all due respect to them, I would say there was in some of them a little bias
Yeah,
towards women.
the subtlety, you can feel it.
Subtle, yes, there was in some of them. I
Yeah.
deeply respect my professors, so I would,
I
but
guess
I
it also comes out in some kinds of remarks when it is made in juries and design discussions. I have seen that myself, being I mean, with colleagues who are male teachers, and we are discussing the same aspect, and then sometimes it just comes out of them without even they realizing, and it is not intentional, but it's just the societal makeup.
it's a mindset.
It's in the
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
mindset, yeah.
That
So
we have faced. Yeah,
I think
but
we have come far from there, because we both are talking about the nearly 25-30 years time gap, I suppose. 20 years. When was it?
more than that, I graduated in 86.
Okay,
So
so
30 years
you are
plus.
still 5 years ahead of no, not five, more than that. I graduated in 95.
Wow,
So
so 9 years.
9 years. Wow. So I think from there, now both of us being in academics, we know that we have come a long way in this
Yes,
time. Yeah. So
yes.
just to recap your memory further in those years, when you were doing your graduation, and I'm sure you were planning your future life from there, as we all do. And you have classmates, probably you had classmates who are going to go abroad, going to get married, going to settle or start practice, who were already having affair to start practice, and so on and so forth. All these chemistries and dynamics were going on. How was it, and what were you planning, or was there just take life as it comes when you were going to step out and take a next step from there to your career, I will say, as a profession?
Yes, at our time, very few went for master's program. Very
Yeah.
few.
Okay.
mostly it was those who had a dream to go abroad.
Yes.
It was a good ticket to go
Yeah.
to go abroad and settle
Yeah.
down. Only those who wanted to go took it up. Otherwise, most of us wanted to get into the profession.
Yeah.
And I
Practice.
had no dreams of going abroad at all. I had been on holiday at a very young age. And though I mean, I loved the time, but I could understand that it was not within me to settle down in US or UK, which I'd visited. I was perfectly happy to be in my country. Therefore, it was profession. So I remember that when I was writing my thesis and writing the report, and at that time it was all manual typing.
Yeah.
So I was writing my report, and in between, I would write out applications to all the forced applications to
Yes.
how many ever offices there were in the city, because my mother wouldn't let me go out.
Yes.
So I just thought, I don't want to sit a day. And as luck would, as God's blessings, that happened. Really, the day I submitted my thesis, next day I got a job offer. I did not sit at home for a day also.
Oh, that's
So
interesting. Yeah, to
because
ensure
I
that you are doing something, because then otherwise family and other pressures with, and also
yes,
self pressure gets created.
definitely. So I said, it's a profession I'm going to start. I won't waste a day. And I didn't. I just, next morning, I had a job application and it said, please come for a physical interview. I went, I got the letter, took a bath, and I went to that place.
So
And
it
then
was
she asked me, there
it
was a
was quick.
lady boss, and she asked me, when can you join? And I said, it was 4 o'clock. I said, tomorrow? He said, fine, 9 o'clock tomorrow, please.
That's quite interesting to know, because then how many years you were in I mean in a job kind of mode, and did you venture into self practice, or was it then smoothly shifting to academics? How did that shift happen?
Yeah, well, that's also quite something. I was a very shy person, I mean, otherwise, if you look at me now, you won't believe it. But I was
You're seasoned
extremely
now.
shy. I wouldn't talk unless I had to talk, I wouldn't. So I was really scared of meeting clients, which I had to. I mean, because it was a small firm, as you know, architectural firms are very
Yes.
small. So
Yeah.
everybody who joins does everything. So I was paranoid about meeting clients, and I didn't want to do that for the longest time. So I don't know. I just, at that time, I thought, okay, let me work in an office for a few years, and then I will take the plunge. But what happened was, in the interim time, what happened is that I met the person I married later, and he had already got a master's degree, and he traveled abroad, and he had studied abroad, and he kept insisting that I should do my master's.
Okay, so he's
And
also from
I
architecture.
didn't want to, but he said no. It will give you. Yes, he said you should do your masters. Now you don't understand, but later on you will see how much it will serve you.
Okay.
So somehow it seemed a good thing, and my parents also supported me, said, no, you must go for your masters. So, but I remember by that time I had already saved some money, and I didn't sit for gate. So the moment I decided, I went back and to the university and I enrolled for the master's program.
So Jadavpur.
And I didn't let my
Jadavpur.
parents pay for it. I've saved money, I will pay from that. Yeah. You've done your job. You've made me an architect. That's it. Now I'm on my own. So I remember, that I paid for that. And yes, that's how I went into the master's program. And later I, of course, got married, and he was an architect too, worked with him for some time.
Yeah.
But then it's difficult for two people to, have their own ideas. It's too much of clash. So that's when I got a job offer in a college, and I decided to take it up. And by that time, my daughter had arrived, and she was very young. So it was very convenient at
Yeah,
that
you
time,
have to
in
then
college,
manage too many things.
to do many things. And the college time was so wonderful. It was from 9 to 2:30, fitted fine. And my daughter was going to be in school till 12:31. It just fitted in. So I
It
just
just
took the
fitted
plunge
in.
and
So
came
you
to
chose
Ahmedabad.
for that. So when
Yeah, but I was so
because
scared. I mean, the first class, I remember I walked into the class and I just froze. For 10 minutes, I didn't say anything. I just froze. And then the students themselves, because I was quite young at that time, and they were like, they must have been 7, 8 years younger than me. They started to say, ma'am, it's okay. Have a glass of water, sit down. It's all right. We are not going to
oh
bite.
my
They made
God,
me feel
oh so
comfortable.
nice.
yes, and then that's how I started just to chit chat with them and got more and more. Yeah, over
So,
the years, yes.
yeah, so this was, I mean, if you have to recollect and tell me, this was how many years after 86 graduation?
I started teaching in 94.
Okay, so quite a good a decade, I will say. So by the
Yeah,
time you got into teaching, you were already having a body of work with practice, I will say, I will
some
assume.
work and the
Yes.
master's degree also.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
masters, and then also baby, because baby itself is an
Maybe.
achievement.
Yes.
So, so you were
Maybe arrived
already
in
having these credentials
90.
before you got into academia. Well, how were you managing this work-life balance? Because that is one thing which I am realizing through this research, and I bring this appointment issue here because women have been so busy, and you also know how I have been stalking you to get this meeting done. So, and this has been with every woman, let me tell you that. And I do understand all these things, but how everyone is really balancing this work life, as we say, life is what is happening in the house with children and family and personal, personal development and all. Although Corona has tried to merge it a lot, but still, how was it then? I mean, how was it
Yeah,
going? Because you yourself was quite young that as a woman, now we are much better managers at this age.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, so I think I compartmentalize my life. So
Mhm.
yeah, because so in the morning it was off to school for her, and then I was in my college. I would try to finish all college work as much as possible within the college hours, or
College
maybe
time.
half an hour or 1 hour even after that. But when I would come home, I would not do any amount of college work at all the time was for her. In fact, I was not a good homemaker. I still am not. I don't enjoy doing any, household chores, for example, cooking or what. I like cleaning, but I don't like the other part. So I didn't do it. I had a maid who would do all that, and I would spend all my time with her, all my time with her.
Yeah,
Whatever she
because
wanted to do, play,
nice.
go out.
Nice. It's again division of labor, I mean, you can't do both the things.
No, yeah, absolutely. So if on certain days she wasn't there, it was very very simple
Yeah.
food, something boiled on the table. That was it. Yeah. So we manage. I mean,
So you were
therefore,
already in a
yes.
nuclear family then, or
No, my father-in-law was there for quite a while,
okay.
and then of course we separated. My husband and I separated. So at that by that time, my daughter was 10.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah. So
So
until that
then
time, yes,
it's another journey beginning.
another journey. From age 10, it was just me and her,
Okay.
and yes, so we had
So
to
by
both
then,
of
but
us.
she was at least little grown up to tell what is
Yes,
she feeling, what she
absolutely.
requires, and things like that.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, because we are talking about making this work-life balance, and that is where this life component comes into picture, and family and all. And we know that this has become now one of the issues with working women to really. And you were also saying, and I think you should get rid of that from your head, that you were not really good homemaker because now you are living by yourself. So it's just that and because reading the literature, I also realize that women are constantly living in that guilt, that they are unable to do justice to the at the home front, where despite doing all the work, probably it is because that it is not to that perfection which you may want to,
Yes,
probably
yes,
because of the division
absolutely.
of
Yeah.
time and labor.
So yeah, the funny thing from here is that yes, I have given a lot of time to my daughter in the sense that reading, playing, whatever she wanted to do, she wanted to do puzzles, whatever she wanted to do, it was I was there with her. But once maybe 5 6 years ago, uh, my friends had come to my house and they were all saying that when children come home, they want mother's cooking. Everybody was saying it. Mother's cooking they want, and my daughter was the only one. She was quiet. They asked her, "Don't you want your mother's cooking?" She says, "I am trying to remember what she could." And then she said she could only cook 3 dishes.
Aloo Siddho,
So I
Aloo
had to
Siddho, Deem
get
Siddho.
that from
My
no better than
favorite
that
too.
actually. No, no, I make some, I make a mean omelette and I make brownies.
Oh, that's good. That's quite a lot of quite a lot of effort, I will say. So I move to the next question from there. As you have had started your journey in academia, and you were also teaching quite a lot of subjects, probably. I would like to know what kind of subjects you were teaching and what kind of ideals from the profession you were drawing, or who were influencing you, either from the practice, from the theory, who were really having impact in the way you were conducting your life, not only as a woman but also as an architect. Some people or
Right.
ideals or some philosophy.
Right. So one thing really helped was I love reading. So
Hmm.
what I would do is I would spend all my time beyond the class hours. I would spend in the library.
Okay.
And believe you me, we had a fun time during the bachelor's program, but we were not introduced so much into reading.
Yes.
So I got it. As such, I would read fiction, but I didn't realize there's so much to read up on this subject.
Yes.
So it was a good, well-stocked library in this college I worked for, and I would spend my entire time just reading. And then there was at that time an architect called Probir Mitro, a
Hmm.
Bengali gentleman, but he was superbly talented. He was at that time, or even now, he was a REBA fellow. He was a civil
Wow.
engineer by education, but he had passed all the REBA tests to become an architect. And he was this absolutely the typical architect that we read about, that completely in his own world, shy, wouldn't talk too much, but he was there for us while we were growing up in our college years.
So as a
His
mentor.
practice, the way he
Hmm.
designed, like a mentor, even if just visited him and he spoke, oh hi, hello, how you doing, 5 lines, it was still a big inspiration for us. So that he was definitely a big moving force, and I was lucky to even work for him for a few years. And I realized that I had to write about him, so I was given to write an article about him. And when I was interviewing him, asking him, so how, when you receive a brief and when you get the site, what happens to you, what do you do next? And he was very puzzled by that question, I remember, because he said, how do I explain to you what happens to my brain? I just start sketching and the design is ready, you know.
Yes.
So he was quite, yeah, it was such a revelation that how people think is so
Yeah.
different
And
to what
translate.
actually, yeah, we are taught to do. So he was instinctively, he was just he's if you ever come to Kolkata, you are familiar with Kolkata, he's designed the Videsh Sanchar Bhavan and also the Right
Oh,
Chowk
nice.
Fort.
I
Yeah,
was
so
going to ask you the next question actually about memorable projects either you have done or somebody else has done, which also motivates you to keep doing these
yes.
good built environment projects, because our profession is all about providing good built environment. So please tell us about that project a little bit more, or any project you would like to tell
Yeah, I will
very
tell you about
briefly.
those two projects, which are very interesting projects, and then I will, of course, the others also. So Prabinda's fort at Raichok, he had to make a resort. Raichok is about 50 kilometers from Kolkata towards the delta,
Hmm.
along the river. So along our river Hooghly, that is. And so he had to make a resort which will attract people. He was given the brief that it's a non-happening place. We're going to build, the client said that we're going to build a resort and uh, we need people to come here on a regular basis. What you're going to do? So what he did was he said, uh, he told people, the client, that you're going to have to spin a story about how there was an old fort over here and
Yeah.
how that has now been, yeah, there was nothing.
To build a memory.
Story, yeah, spin a story, but how there was an old fort, and we are going to do an adaptive reuse of that and make a resort. So the whole building was designed like that. So there were, you would, if you go there, you would see that there is the ruins of a fort, and then the very very modern additions to that. So that was an absolute white and glass, and then the old fort. So it was a learning experience, that is something could be, like a tale, a story, and then you build an entire project around it.
So
And
you mean the fort was also built? It was not there.
And the fort was not there. It was built. It was so what the client really helped, and he's a very well-known client, is Harshvardhan Neotia. What he did was his team, that is, they sourced bricks from all buildings of Kolkata, because even there's a lot of demolition happening. So his source was very thin, flat bricks. He sourced them to make that
Okay.
fort. So it came out to be a wonderful and wonderful project. Yeah. And the
Nice,
other
nice.
one, Videsh Sanchar Bhavan, is the office of the headquarters of the Videsh Sanchar Nigam.
Yes.
And it was the first intelligent building of Eastern India.
Okay.
So at that time, we didn't even know what does intelligent mean. But then we realized that how much of digital controls it had. So it had this sensors whereby the lights would come on slowly, in lines along away from the window, and the nearest lift would always come when you pressed for the lift. All these kind of things were incorporated, and the building had to look really, really modern, which it does. And that one fantastic thing about that building was that there are two blocks and they had to be connected by a bridge. And so most people would connect the bridge at the same level. What Probin Mitra did was he had this slight incline, and he connected the 6th floor of one building to 7th floor of another.
Okay.
So they came a slight incline, and visually it's all exposed, so it looks absolutely so different and nice.
Nice. So just basically making the best use of whatever resources he had there, but at the same time becoming inspiration to people like you. I mean, because
and generations, I think, before me and after me.
Probably. Oh, I'm looking forward to really having a view of those projects which you're talking about.
Please do.
Good that I have a choice to go to Kolkata and really have a look at those buildings which you are so much appreciating, and I look forward to it, to be honest, to be with you, to be in those places which you so appreciate. So
very happy to show you around. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So that brings me to the next question of being in the practice in all formats, whether in academia or in profession, as we say, which I have personal reservations on calling only the profession as a practice and teaching not as a practice. I mean, I will prefer to have them at merge. What kind of physical and psychological challenges do you think as women we face, or you probably have experienced it in all kinds of practice, whether you are on field, whether you are in academics, whether you are in a project meeting or anything, some experiences from your side?
Well, since I started practicing or being part of a practice so many years ago, at that time, definitely the idea was that women are going to be just decorating things. They cannot get into the nitty-gritty and the technicality. So whenever I had to meet a client, even much after the initial time, I would say, let's say in the turn of the century even, right? So millennium as we began, at that time also, if I said something, the architects would, it was not expected that I would make any kind of comment, right? I would I would second the opinion of the other seniors.
Yes.
And then when I realized that,
to be precise.
Yes. Yeah. I just second the opinion. There was no way that you were going to have another opinion, that is. And yes, I realized that so the women would, and I was expected to do a lot of drafting work, but if it came to a design decision, then it couldn't be incorporated without already
oh my God,
consulting.
it is so similar experience
Yes.
I also had in the past, not anymore, but yes, I can completely relate with it.
Relate to it,
and
yes.
then in the client meeting, site meeting, standing at the back, and all men are discussing on the drawing which you have prepared. It was kind of a bizarre.
Yes, and then very often, or at least a few times, if not very often, maybe I'm remembering it incorrectly, but at least a few times, it would have happened that if there was already in office a little altercation about a design decision, and the one that the men preferred have been taken. And when we went to the client meeting, and the client doesn't know, right, who did what. So the client happens to
I
prefer
can
the one
relate
that
this.
came
I can
from the
so
woman.
much relate this.
So then it became a big issue.
You
So
really raised a very interesting point because it is there. We feel it, huh? Sometimes.
quite a few
and,
times it has happened.
and also the fact that the ideas which were given in the office were not accepted, but eventually on the field and on the discussion,
It was done. Yes, they become the primary.
those ideas and points come as in the foreground.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, it's so interesting. So now you know the reason why I am doing these interviews. I'm just trying to find reflections of my life into others' lives,
Yes,
because
yes,
that
yes.
brings me to a very interesting question, which now as a senior academician, researcher, scientist, you can answer it very well. So I want you to imagine a situation if in our society, if all the leading decisions and leading architects were women, do you think cities would have been different? And this is the only professional, so-called scientific question in this interview, by the way. Do you think cities would have looked different?
Absolutely.
And what
Absolutely.
will be that difference?
See, because I will just quickly tell you why I think so. Is because the capacity of a woman to think for all kinds of stakeholders at the same time.
Inclusive.
That is, yes, extremely. It's very natural for them. Whereas for men, it's they're like on a super. They're like on a highway. So if you're on a highway, you obviously can't think about
The
any of the
details.
villages around you. So that's how they would think. It's just a matter of thinking. So having said this, I will say that it is definitely a lot more inclusive is what I was trying to get at. That if it was designed by the women, then it would be a lot more inclusive of all gender, economic class, cultural groups. It would definitely be that, yeah. And the expression would definitely, now we talk about sustainability, but when we were small, we didn't know this word. What is environmental? We didn't know. But this the sustainable approach, wherein you are not imposing your footprint in a damaging way, that I think is has been inculcated in a gender biased way. Because when we are growing up, our mothers have told us not to waste, to reuse. So all these principles we already learned while we were growing up, and we would naturally incorporate them.
I also probably genetically also being woman and being producer of the world, I will say, because we are in genuine sense creating most of, I mean, most of the human, not most, but all the human beings are created by women, so that way the real creator.
Yes. So the creativity comes in different ways. Creativity in managing things, creativity so it's creativity in every aspect of life, which is, I think, a lot more.
So
and as
how would
architect,
cities look then?
architects,
So how would cities look? What some key points that cities would have been like this?
In cities, and if I am allowed to say this, is that the obsession with tall buildings, large buildings, that would definitely be not there.
Okay.
Because men have this obsession with size and how big is tallest.
With speed, highway,
yes,
as you said.
Exactly. So therefore, we would definitely be looking at a much more human scaled city, and it's okay to be digitally quick, but it's also okay to take a few steps and stop and chat and catch up. So yes, the EQ would be very, very prominent.
So thinking will be also important. Probably Corona is also telling us that the laid back and slowing down is the way of life
for us. Otherwise, we would have damaged our world to absolutely to the hilt. No coming back from there. So it was this Corona has definitely told us, shaken us up, and told us that you better get up and see what you are doing to this world. Yeah.
Do you think a woman, because they are able to do self-reflection or having this guilt feeling, like you also mentioned in your taking care of home, we are often more conscious in taking decisions, and that's where probably there's a delay, or that's why probably the details are more worked out, and that would have had an impact on the design. Do you think that is one of the reasons for women
I would
being?
definitely, yeah, I would definitely think so. Women will take more time simply because they will consider many factors.
But
They
do you
will,
think that is also a
yes.
hindrance in doing practice, so-called professional
I don't
practice?
think it, no, I don't
It's
think
not.
it's a hindrance at all. Not at all.
So that comes as a
Because,
strength. Uh,
yeah, yeah. There's
because that
his
is a
saying in
worry,
Hindi.
no? There is a worry that
Yes.
why we still consider those who are practicing architecture, as in building, are considered architects. And that is one of the pain why I started this research, by the way, that why those women who are doing research and teaching in academic institutions are not considered architects. I
Yeah,
started
they're
this
not
journey with
considered
that question.
professionals. They're not considered professionals
I started this
because
research with this
because it
question,
was
actually.
yes. It is always about practice and
Yes,
never about research, which is why architects don't think that it's important to do research, but it is
yes,
so very important
so
to do
important.
that. Yes,
So
absolutely.
that's good, because that brings me to the last question, which is not about gender or anything, but not specific to gender, but some kind of message you would like to give to the younger generation, gender biased, unbiased, nothing, just younger generation, no gender generation way, as how they can be a little bit more gender inclusive to bring that equity issue, because now we see in schools and colleges, architecture education particularly is showing up equal number of boys and girls. So what kind of message do you think you would like to give to all genders? It's not only about women, men anymore, in the society for inclusiveness, that they are more accommodative to people as human beings than just like being men as architect or women as architect. What is your message to the younger generation?
Yes, the first thing is what we just said, that gender is not just about the men and women. Gender is about a lot more than that, lot many in betweens, which we for the longest time we did not even consider their existence.
Yes.
So yes, that is definitely one. And as you say, inclusive, what will be the message to the younger generation? And I'm guessing that you mean um, the younger generation who is now thinking of taking up architecture as a
Yes.
profession, or thinking of taking up
Or
some
in
kind of a
already
career,
there.
or
Yeah.
just in their first years. I would definitely like to tell them that this profession is definitely one of the most wholesome professions in the world. Wholesome, holistic, however you want to call it. It is everything that you can think of. It is politics, it is economics, it is culture, it is science, it is art, it is philosophy, it is psychology, it is all of that. And everybody has a place.
Yeah.
We were brought up to believe design. If you can't design, then you're a failed architect. It's not at all like that. Each of us, I'm sure, we have an expertise with which
Yes.
we can shine in this world,
So,
and be true to that. Delve deep into yourself, see what is that part of the entire world that is architecture, to understand which which of that you will hone and polish,
yeah.
and then you will be able to do a very good job and be a good human being in this earth.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's a very good
So that's my
note
message.
to convey to the younger generation, because they have to also transcend this very notion of architecture, and do whatever they are good at, or whatever they love to do, and
Yes,
really take it further. I mean, they don't have to get into that stereotype of architecture is
yes,
this and this is
yes.
not architecture. I think
Right.
that's a wonderful note to have
Thank you.
closure to this conversation. I really loved talking to you, Sonia, because we don't know
It
each
was
other so
wonderful.
much. So this was a good way to even learn about you in other ways, and more to learn about you when I see you also, and when we talk in other platforms or other sessions. And thank you so much for
Surely.
taking out this time.
My
And
pleasure and
take
honor.
care.
I'm looking forward to linking more with you. Surely.
Thank you so much, and take care. And I connect with you on another platform very soon. Okay. Ciao.
Sure,
Ciao.
sure.
Bye bye.
And